engine quits and you're over a lake and you have trees basically to the shore. If you came in and landed towards shore and you know how to water ski, you hit the water, you water ski, and you land up onto the beach. You survive, your airplane's probably going to be together. Whereas if you don't know how to do all that stuff, you go crashing into the trees and you possibly could be dead.
Aviators, welcome to the Flight Club podcast. I'm your host, Jason Middleton. I'm a pilot, I'm an aviation entrepreneur, and a huge fan of the people that make up our diverse aviation community. Today's guest on Flight Club is one of those people that truly has aviation in his blood. His grandfather was a World War II fighter pilot flying the P-38 Lightning over the beaches of Normandy. His dad was a legendary aviation entrepreneur on the central coast of California. He's been flying in the bush since he could walk. He continues the family legacy by running a very successful aviation business. He's flying his Cessna 180 and his Piper Super Club all around California and beyond. And we happen to be sitting at the San Ynez airport named after his family. Aviators, welcome Chris Kunkle. Before I became an entrepreneur, I was a pilot and you were working at your dad's business and we knew each other. You were like this kid fueling airplanes and I was a guy flying them.
I was a lot younger. I mean, I think I was probably, 16 years old or so? 17 years old. And my dad helped shop by that 643 and then you were a pilot for them and out of our facility. And
that was a fun time, man. It was a lot of fun flying back then. I want to jump into, you're kind of known to be a bush pilot in California.
Yeah.
What is it like being a bush pilot in California? It's something you don't really hear a lot of. And it just fascinates me that the flying you guys are doing out here is something you don't normally see.
Yeah, I mean, when you talk about bush pilot, everybody thinks Alaska, Northern Territories of Canada, maybe even the Pacific Northwest, but nobody really thinks California is where we're at, especially, we post these videos and stuff on social media, and the last place they think that I'm going to talk about is California, right? So it's a challenge. California is not conducive to a lot of things, especially, with the forests and other land, I guess, management companies out in this area, but we've actually been able to tie into a lot of relationship building here with private ranch owners and local agencies and stuff to be able to go fly out of this area in the Central Coast, and it's kind of our best kept secret. We don't promote it a lot because it is something that's it's a small area. We live in a small town, small community, and so we fly in probably some of the hardest trips that I've seen, socially and talking to friends, in our community. Yeah. And it's just right out of our backyard, right?
Yeah.
So.
We got it. Yeah.
Tommytown.
So this is the first time we've ever shot the podcast outside of a studio. We're at an airport right now, and a CJ, looks like a CJ3.
Yeah, I believe it is.
Just took off out of 2,700 foot runway in San Ynez. Yeah. That's what we're doing today.
Hell yeah.
Right off Kunkle Field.
Yeah, Kunkle Field, yeah.
Which is cool. I mean, this is an aviation podcast, and I think it's totally fine if we have some jet noise in the background.
Well, it shows the diversity too. I mean, we're got two tail draggers that we fly bush out of the San Ynez airport, and then also we got the corporate aircraft going as well. It's just this community is really tight.
Yeah, it is. The community over here, not only that, just the general community over in San Ynez. I just live over the hill in Santa Barbara, but it's a tight-knit community, friends of, we all know the same people. It's really cool, but the aviation community is really tight over here too. Yeah. And I've been flying in and out of San Ynez for years, but tell me a little bit about the community around the kind of flying you guys are doing out here.
Yeah, so we have probably 3 to 5, 6 airplanes that are doing kind of all the same thing, Super Cubs and stuff. My really good friend Cub Doug on Instagram.
Yeah. Cub Doug,
Cub Doug, and then Neil and a few others. And we all go out on. Right now it's busy season for me, so I'm not doing a lot of flying, which kind of is a bummer. But in the wintertime, in fall and spring, Saturday morning, Sunday mornings, we're going out and we're going out to Ogilvie. We're going out to the Davis Ranch. We drop in, we see the managers of the land, and hang out with them. We will take them some pastries or whatever they like to eat or do, and it's really fun. I mean, we go do a lot of formation flying. We watch each other's backs. We're constantly worried about safety, and which is what makes it fun. Is that you're not only worried about yourself, you're worried about these 3 other guys that are flying with you, right? Because you have these relationships that are really deep. I mean, other than group sport or team sport, this is the next thing. We're not necessarily flying together in the same airplane, but we're watching each other's back, making sure there's no conflicts, making sure nobody loses their engine out in the middle of the forest or whatever. And if they do, we're going to stand by until we get them help or make sure that they're still alive.
Keep an eye on them.
So
communicate.
that part makes it for me really fun, because
You got to trust the people you're working with.
Yeah, the first person that goes into these strips, might be the first time we've been in there in a couple months, and
Yeah.
wind and the runway condition and other things that are going on there. That person might tell you to not come in, or you have a decision, you have to make, right? And that decision is calculated on what you want to take as risk that day. If you're not feeling it.
How do you if you haven't landed somewhere in a while, whether it's a gravel bar or an unimproved strip or even a field, like how do you, from the field, if you haven't been there in a while, like how do you determine what the conditions are? Like, would you just fly super low? Tell me about the process of assessing a landing spot?
Yeah, the assessment is, as we've seen, has gotten a little sticky with what's happened with Trent Palmer with inspection passes. So you have to be, very, very careful of what you're doing and looking at other people's properties and understanding the lay of the land. Obviously in the backcountry, when you're dealing with a 3,000 acre ranch that's out there in private property that you're already approved to go into.
Yeah.
Do your inspection pass, come down low, drag tires. You can see what's going on pretty easily. The hard part is you get later in the season, coming into spring and your grass gets tall, you can't see rocks. But a lot of these strips we're operating off of, consistently throughout the year, so we know them really well. But Doug is kind of my guy I follow in everywhere, which is a little scary, because he's very he loves his like risk level is way different than mine. I have a kid, I have a business, all this stuff. He has a business, but he doesn't really have any anybody that he's supporting, but he's willing to take more risk than I am. And I have to understand that when I'm following these guys in or being a lead or whatever. But those are the trust levels, and he knows my flying skill, I know his flying skill.
Yeah.
So when we go in, he'll land first and say, Chris, I don't think this one's for you, or whatever. We've gotten better.
Yeah.
But when I was first starting out, when I was chasing him around, some of the strips that he was doing, I just loiter over above.
You talk about varying risk factors, and in my side of aviation, the corporate private jet world, we have a very different relationship with risk than probably you do, right? Mm-hmm. Flying in the bush, but even within what we're doing in aviation, every pilot has their own sort of level of what their comfort. And I always tell, my counsel to pilots is, if you feel it's risky, it is risky. No matter what your level is. If it's a calm, clear day, but there's a 10 knot crosswind, if that's your risk level, that's your risk level. But if it's, people fly into hurricanes, people fly into, firestorms and airplanes, as a job. And it's just the risk thing. And I think it's very important, no matter what you do in aviation, to kind of really understand your personal risk level and kind of where you live in that.
It's huge. Yeah, it's because like you just said, it's not the same for everybody.
Yeah,
it's way different for everybody.
Yeah,
if you have a child at home, if you have a business, if you just by yourself, when you're 18 years old, you're willing to do a lot of different stuff, right?
Totally,
but with the bush flying,
and you don't know what you don't know.
Exactly. Now I'm all scared. So
you get scared a few times. It elevates your risk factors a little bit. Do you so there's some things in bush flying that, and I don't know anything about it. I've never done it. My experience in aviation has always been uniforms, flying off of long runways in jet airplanes with lots of regulation, right? And very controlled environments. And I love and I'm fascinated by people that fly out in the wild. It's just such an open, free thing to me, and I would love to get into it someday. And maybe you could teach me. But things like when you're flying, when you're flying into like rivers and gravel bars, and there's maneuvers you guys do. Like one of the maneuver that fascinates me is the landing on water. Mm-hmm. Like you're actually rolling on water before you hit land. Tell me about how do you approach that landing maneuver?
Yeah, so what we use that for is to extend the runway, right? Water is very hard. Everybody thinks, oh, you're going to touch the water and sink, right? Or you're going to be soft. Well, you could drive that thing on water, especially with the bush wheels that we have that we're operating these aircraft on.
Yeah.
You could be running that thing down to like 20, 30 miles an hour and still be planing on top of that water.
No
you just
shit,
extended
really? Even
holy
shit.
And you could, you're running up on the beach, so the last part of it's only a couple inches thick, right?
Yeah.
So of water. So now you have this gravel bar that might be 50 to 100 feet long. You could extend it by another 100 feet by using the water, slowing your speed down. You get up on it and you slow down. The way I approach is I don't like to get really slow just because back to risk, right?
Yeah.
There's just things that I'm not willing to do in my life right now because I have other people that are dependent on me. But you can slow it pretty down. But like, it's really fun. You come down, you just land like just normally,
normal landing.
and you'll feel it. It's really slippery.
Okay.
And so once you start slowing down, you'll start feeling the drag, and that's kind of how you judge your speed.
Yeah.
You roll up on the ground, and now you start having braking. But the biggest thing is like there was some kind of a couple people that were excited about, oh, this water skiing is dangerous. Well, Kevin Quinn, Stoll pilot, he really promotes the knowing how to water ski, because what happens
you actually call that's the maneuver. It's called water skiing.
Yeah, water skiing. Yeah. So if you think about all these things, we have all these, back to risk, engine quits and you're over a lake, and you have trees basically to the shore. Well, if you came in and landed towards shore and you know how to water ski, you hit the water, you water ski, and you land up onto the beach.
Yeah.
You survive. Your airplane's probably going to be together, and all that stuff. Whereas if you don't know how to do all that stuff, you go crash into the trees and you possibly could be dead. So these are maneuvers that are very much safety.
I mean, do you have to have special tires? You have to have the big Tundra tires to do it?
I mean, your speed considerably goes down when you have the bigger tires because you have more surface area. But I mean, I have pictures of my dad water skiing out here in the riverbed on little 6 inches tires and a Champ, back in like the 60s, and it's amazing, the barnstormers and stuff back then, but it's all it is speed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah, it's fun.
And then, I mean, do you like when you, where have you explored? Like obviously the valley around here in San Ynez, I know you've done a little bit of camping and flying stuff. Like talk to me about like, hey, we're going to go on a trip. And what is that like? Can you fly into the Sierras and just go land places? And
yeah, just last year, Doug, once again, he's my
Cub Doug.
Cub Doug. We've been flying around for a while, but we head out to hit Kernville and fly up the Kernville drainage, and there's some in-holdings back there that they have that some investors have bought that are airplane guys, and they've built little strips, one way in, one way out strips at like 8,000 feet, density altitude like 9,500, it's amazing, to be able to take off out of San Ynez, which is basically on the coast, pretty urban for the most part, and you're landing in an hour and a half in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
Bears, fishing, 8,000 feet high.
And you guys go back, fish, do that kind of stuff, and just camp, have a good time.
Have fun. I mean, it's awesome.
So cool.
I mean, we all bring good food, because we're all, able to do that now, and throw a couple steaks in the bag.
Some good Central Coast wine with you.
Yeah, take some wine and whiskey, and it's just a good time, and it's like, I mean, I guess my best analogy is like for somebody that doesn't fly is getting on your dual sport motorcycle, hauling out to the mountains and camping and having fun, riding with your buddies and coming home, on Sunday. That's kind of the best analogy I can say.
That's so rad. I love it. What's your level of preparedness when you're going to launch a mission like that?
Sure.
You're like, do you guys look at satellite photos? Like, if you're going to explore areas?
Yeah, there's a lot of, I mean, I guess for instance, I'm just going to kind of go into this, the Davis Ranch, which was a property out in the Manzana drainage.
Yep.
Doug found it. I wasn't there for when he found it, but he told me the story, and same thing. So he's flying around, comes up the Manzana drainage, sees a meadow. He's like analyzing it. He's flown so much, he knows his airplane's, what he can do with his airplane.
And he's in a Super Cub.
He's in a Super Cub. Yep. And he does a couple of passes at what he thinks the approach would be high up. It was a one way in, one way out, so you don't get an option, So once you're committed, you're committed.
You're committed, really.
And so, and that's kind of one of the things that we do is flying with our guys, is that whenever you're committed, you call that on the radio that you're committed, so everybody knows that this is it. So he lands. Well, Doug's like, or Brian's like, that was awesome. We thought you crashed, and he's like, no, everything's good. But he analyzed. He saw, he made a couple runs at it. He looked at the uphill. Most of the time, you want to land uphill. You try and land into the wind, but uphill and into the wind don't always coincide. So you have to figure out which one you want to take. Right? Do you want the 10 knot tailwind, but you want a huge uphill, or do you want, so those are things you have to learn or kind of figure out on your own.
And there's no weather reporting.
There's no weather reporting. The cool thing with like we fly with some guys that have the new, Garmin G3s or whatever, and they have your relative land.
Yeah.
So like you're flying over airplane or runway, what you would think would be the runway, and they're like, oh, it's 15 knots on the tail. Because they have it all in their box, right? Yep. And so that's been a really cool tool to have. I don't have it. I'm all flying just steam gauges, which is fine. It's
just
light.
Old school.
Yeah. So, but you can see it on ponds. You see the river. You see the trees. That fly. If there's a flag around or whatever. But yeah, so that makes it fun. So,
dude, rad. Do Tell me about some of the cool, what's some of your favorite places to fly?
Honestly,
that you can disclose.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we have some fun places. I mean, we have Ogilvy, which is another in-holding out here.
Yeah.
It's just fun because it's not super challenging, but it's a really fun approach. And, I like really dynamic approaches.
Yeah.
That's my fun. Like, that's the most fun thing. So, like, the cool thing about the Cub is you start learning that airplane, what you can fly. So I fly my approach like at 40 miles an hour.
Yeah.
It's really behind the curve at that point.
Yeah.
But like just making really fluid, really dynamic approaches. Rudder, this is not a game where you put yaw dampener on like your jet. You're slipping it around and you're doing things to make this airplane. And you have to understand aerodynamics too, because like you have to understand like if I do this, is what wing is going to potentially stall or whatever, because you're running. I mean, you're 5 miles an hour before, right above stall. So like you don't have those huge, airspeed differences between approach and stall.
I mean, when you're flying that slow, I mean, you're right on the edge.
It's always on the edge, and that's back to risk. Engine quits.
Yeah.
Where are you going to put it? Ogilvy's is kind of a cool spot. It has a river. You're going to wreck the airplane. You're going to survive though.
Yeah.
These are things that you look at. Davis Ranch. If the engine quits short final, you're probably going to die.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just a cliff, but these are things that you have to, maybe keep another 5 miles an hour on the airspeed, or, you run those things through your head. Like what would make me have a better chance of surviving this? Or you just take the risk.
Yeah.
I want to be here. I want to go in there. I'm not really like that because there's nowhere that I need to go.
Right.
Nobody's paying me. Nobody's like, there's no gold brick at the end of the runway. So like, that's when I just go home at that point if I don't like it. So,
and it's funny you bring that up. Like being paid to do something, you have this like intrinsic risk, or like you feel like you got to get the job done, right? And when you're flying for fun, I've heard this a lot from my. Like I have some friends that are helicopter guy. They kind of do the same thing, but in helicopters. And they're like, if it's not looking good, we just don't go. Yeah. And I love that, and it's funny. There was some statistics on single pilot jets, like that CJ3 that took off earlier. Owner flown single pilot jets are statistically one of the safer operations for jet operations.
Sure.
Owner flown, because they're like, it's the pro pilot ones that have the higher risk factor with the boss in the back.
Yeah.
They're being paid to get a job done. Owners are always like, we're just going to not fly.
Yeah, we're going to take another night on our Airbnb and we're just going to call it good.
We're just going to not fly. I mean, have you had any like things that kind of you learned from?
Yeah. I pride myself on being very conservative, and I pride myself on being very attention to detail. So I'm not, so I'm going to throw Cub Doug. He likes being under the bus anyway. So he's one of those guys that'll just full bore go in, do it. He just goes in and then kind of thinks about it later.
Yeah.
I'm the opposite. I'm thinking about it. I'm going to run it through a couple of times. I don't sleep the night before when I know I'm going somewhere, like, cause I'm thinking about what I'm going to do. Right.
Yeah.
But I do this with everything, whether I'm jumping on a one wheel or I'm riding a bike or I'm riding a motorcycle. Like
those one wheels are dangerous, bro.
You
should not do that.
So, but it's like, that's just my thing is like, I'm very attention to detail, and I want to learn my airplane the best I can.
Yeah.
And so I know what it's going to do wherever I put it, whatever speed I'm at, whatever I'm doing, I know what that airplane's going to do. I've had some times where you get close to a big rock and you didn't even see it because it's in the dirt, or, things like that scared me and like made me really change my way of like assessing a runway or whatever.
Yeah.
With the typical, in, doing a cross country and you run out of gas type of thing. I mean, you do that, especially in a Cub, because, you don't have like a both or anything.
Oh,
so you
right.
run out of gas and you run it to the right, and then you put it right, on the right side or whatever, the opposite side. And
we've all done it. We've all done it a few times.
It happens, I mean, my dad told me that I was flying back from Chico when I was like 18 years old going to college, and I was making it nonstop from Chico in the Cub, and I was like, Dad, I think it's gonna be close. He's like, well, just run the left side out of gas.
Yeah.
You don't have any more, and then just go to the right, and we'll see when you get here. Kind of thing. We're like texting on the way in, and those are the kind of experiences. But now I know I can do that. Those are things that like you can get as much gas if you have to, because I mean, there's gonna be times obviously you try and flight plan everything, but headwinds and all this stuff, and like in a Cub when you're only going 75, 80 miles an hour, it's like you're in the middle of nowhere. You can't get out of there very fast, right?
Yeah,
so like,
sure.
I've learned from a few things. But
I'm the guy that I learn from the things that I've done in airplanes, but I also like to learn from the things other people have done. And like you can, it's always, I think it's extremely important as an aviator to watch people and things that have happened out there and like what went wrong? What did they do? I want to learn from that thing. And you had kind of a famous aviation accident in your backyard, and a guy named Trevor jumped out. He was doing a YouTube stunt, and this guy jumped out of his airplane, and it crashed, and he parachuted to the ground, filmed the whole thing for YouTube, and ended up in jail.
Yeah.
I mean, and this is right in your backyard.
Yeah, it was just 12 miles north of us.
Yeah. So. Did you know about that right away when that happened?
We saw, obviously it just blew up YouTube right away. I didn't know exactly where it was, and I started hearing a little bit more about it, and then it really got dialed in because we knew the guys that helicoptered it out, and then we knew the guys at Lompoc that were involved in it and all this stuff. So it became a really kind of a relevant story for all of us. As aviators, or as the community of aviation, it hurts. As bush flying, it really hurts. These are the mountains that we fly in, we preserve. Our friends are out there that own these properties. We were chatting earlier that there's a ranch out there that it was right up against where the crash was that we really want to fly on, and they're just completely closed off about it because they just think airplanes fall out of the sky. And that's a huge liability for them. And that's just it's really a shame. I mean, the sad part is it gets people interested in aviation that weren't in aviation. Like when you get 30, 40, 50 million people watching a video, most of those people are not aviators just because of just sheer size of our community. So I mean, it sucks that does bring people into being interested or curious about aviation. But is that a good look? I don't think so.
I mean, and also the social media, the draw of next level, right? You look at all these social media superstars, right? Mr. Beast, all these things that people are doing, and it's like, let's do something crazy. But there's you have to, especially with aviation, you really have to take a step back and like, first and foremost, you're a pilot. And when you become a pilot, you're basically vowing to be a safe human being and protect, not crash airplanes in areas. And I think that social media influence drove that one greatly, which is unfortunate, right?
Well, there's a few of them. I mean, it's not proven, but there's obviously the Bonanza that went in the water out of Monterey or the San Jose area that was believed to be a stunt. And there's plane swap, which I wanted to touch base on. My buddy, I'm really good friends with Luke Akins, and they Red Bull has the money to do that. They had a closed course, they had safety, they had fire trucks, they had aerial surveillance of the area. They did it completely right. And they crashed an airplane. Well, under that circumstance, what is that doing to the community? I think it's great. I personally think it's great. I was like, one less 182. Everybody's freaking out. Oh, they crashed an airplane. It's like we killed a dog. It's like these airplanes are gonna die on a ramp in Santa Barbara, rusting away, or they're gonna be in wherever. Like, it's more like an exhibition at that point, and it was done professionally. People want to see that. That is bringing new blood into this aviation. It's exciting.
That one is a extremely controlled. I mean, it's a stunt. It was what they're doing, right? They're, Evel Knievel jumping the fountain at Caesars in Vegas. It's the same exact thing, right?
Same thing.
It's a controlled environment, planning. I'm sure there's safety coordinators around and ambulances standing by and all the things, but that was a very different thing. So,
but back to social media real quick I've been able to build my channel very well, but it's addicting, right? More followers, more views, more clicks, more comments, more everybody wants more of this, and you want more money.
Your social media, your presence, and people they got to check out your Instagram, but you're like more of a cowboy. You got that cowboy swagger, good looking guy. Flying your airplane around. It's pretty cool.
It is fun. And we do try and do like for me, it's more or less like people that can't do this kind of flying or not, maybe they're not in the right community, they're not in the right location, whatever, to do this stuff. They can kind of live through my videos, right? And it's a very organic feel. It's natural sound. It's a shot of an airplane landing, which is very technical, showing the approach or whatever. That's kind of what I've built my social media on. I'm super stoked about it. Like, I love doing it because I'm creative. I love the camera, and I love flying these airplanes. So that's kind of where mine's going.
And that's let's talk about that. I mean, you and I talked a little bit about before the show about you're in the aviation business, right? You're running running a company, an FBO. You guys have hangars, fuel. you have an aviation business, but you mentioned something about the creativity of filming and flying. And I thought it was kind of a fascinating kind of facet to you, where you have this business side, you're an aviator, but there's also this creative thing too. Like you got into drone flying really early on. Tell me about your experience with shooting. And
2013, we built a drone business. It was called Aero Optics, and built a heavy lift drone. We started going to work, and we ended up on some crazy stuff. Like we ended up in Cortez Banks, 100 miles offshore San Diego,
really?
Shooting Greg Long big wave surfing.
Did you really?
Yeah.
Off of like you go flying the drone off a boat?
Oh yeah. So we took 2 boats out. Greg Long was his return after he crashed. That really big time, his return. So I think the only reason we got the job is because everybody was like not stupid enough to go fly their $20,000 drone over water all day long.
Yeah.
But it was the craziest thing. We jumped on a boat in the middle of the night. We wake up. We're out on this reef, 100 miles offshore. Wasn't a breath of wind.
No
sea
way.
100 feet down. Especially with the drone. Animals, everything. We shot the drone, and so it was like the experiences that I've been able to get with this. What we were able to get with the drone.
Yeah.
We were shooting in the Sierras. We got to work with Kawasaki a lot on their side by sides. We'd shoot for a week in the Sierras, and it was just amazing places. Didn't really make any money, no, but it was still fun. I mean, and but back to the creativity side is like that kind of like birthed this whole like creative side of me and working the camera and understanding shots and looking at locations and the angles and all that, and that's like. Obviously the flying is really important to me. I'm sure we'll touch on the family side of it here in a little bit, but like the creative side of it is just the same thing. So like even when I'm flying and there's no cameras, I'm still like thinking about how it looks to somebody else, right? Like we were just flying.
As long as you look good flying, that's what's important.
I don't want to say it, but I'm
my
sure
hair right.
Sean will touch base on that later. No.
Damn, the headset always screws your hair up. I hate that.
Yeah. Usually wear a hat. That's why I'm all greased up today, So, but no, that part of it has helped me immensely through my business. Jet Center, I have a really kind of fun channel, on the Instagram side of it with the Jet Center, and then also just running it off my following now. But like photos, video, quality stuff, like people love to see that, and it's getting the views, it's getting the clicks, which here we are back doing that again. We're looking for clicks and video, but that's how we make money, right? That's how we get people to come. I mean, I don't even know how many F-18 pilots, F-35 pilots are coming to the Jet Center because they want a picture of them taken, and they'll get hot gas and they'll go home. And when they get home, they text me, "Hey, you got any photos?" It's as simple as that.
Yeah.
It drives.
It's being positive in aviation. That's why I started this podcast. I want to get people involved, get the community involved, bring new people into aviation because, we need more pilots out there. Right. And I think people don't really understand. They think aviation, they think airlines, and that's it. These kids that are growing up, and that are, maybe hinting at getting into aviation, all they're thinking is airline path. There's so many things to do in aviation, right? And I think, people like you putting the stuff out there in a positive way, and it's really good. It gets kids fired up because this is how they learn now, right? They're exposed to things through social media channels and podcasts, and YouTube is huge, right? Yep. And so I think it's great what you're doing. I mean, I've watched a ton of your stuff, and it's beautiful. You guys do a great job with it. So
I appreciate it. Thanks.
I love it. But I want to get, what I really wanted to talk to you about is you're like when you talk about aviation being in your blood, it doesn't get much more thick than yours. And you have kind of legendary people in your family. I knew your dad. Your dad actually got me a job flying an airplane early on. I met him years ago. Yep. And just a great guy, fascinating. Always flying that airplane around.
Yep.
But your grandfather is also a legendary aviator.
Yep.
Tell me about him.
Yeah.
Tell me about your grandpa a little bit.
When he was a child, they were in Pennsylvania, and they're kind of that true American story, right? Yeah. His dad, I believe, his dad passed away. There's some of this stuff that's a little gray, but his dad passed away. His mom loaded him up in the Cadillac, and they drove across the country.
Yeah, they went to Hollywood.
Yeah,
yeah.
They ended up in Beverly Hills, and he'd go down to the airport down at Burbank, and all the old airports down there that aren't even around anymore, and he'd wanted to fly, and so the war was around the corner. It was starting to happen. He went down and tried to sign up at 17 years old.
Yeah.
He wanted to fly fighter aircraft, and they went and they're like, well, you need your mom to consent. And he went back. He's like, Mom, I need you to sign this. She's like, nope, not until you finish high school.
Yeah.
So he went to Beverly Hills High, played football for Beverly Hills High, and then I think he ended up waiting until he was like 19 or whatever before he really got in. He went up to Portland, and that's where he kind of did all of his training.
Yeah.
He was flying around this area, which is the craziest thing. He flew around to Santa Maria as a P-38 base because Santa Maria Airport was a P-38 base in World War II. So he was flying down here. He was dogfighting probably over us right here because the Navy base in Santa Barbara and Camp Cook or whatever it was over at Vandenberg, and which is just unreal to me that we like resided in a place that he came in 1940s. He was flying around this area, but he ended up going to Europe. He didn't get to fly. He didn't have enough time to fly on D-Day. The next day, though, he was flying patrol over Normandy in the P-38s. So he was flying over Normandy, doing patrols, and he landed. They set up the first airbase, A1. So he'll tell the story, and hopefully maybe you can get him on someday because
I would love to have,
they talk about milk runs and all this different things. A milk run is just a normal day in the sky. No contest, no airplanes to shoot at or whatever. So anyways, the air side of that war was pretty lame in his eyes, and he didn't get to do a lot of dogfighting. And so they would go and they were starting to do like ground stuff, so blowing up bridges and trains and all these sort of things. And it was talking about cowboy. Yeah. That was cowboy. They're out there flying, low IFR with no radios and figuring out how to get back home and stuff. Well, he did that, came back from the war, or missed a very, very major event. He got shot down in Germany. He broke he was in the slot, and he broke to engage in some W190s and 109s. Nobody followed him. His formation kept going, so he took on all these aircraft by himself. Oh, shit. The fight lasted, I believe, 6 minutes. He doesn't remember much of it because of what was going on, but the first infantry was below. They watched the whole thing. Got, I think, 2 or 3 aircraft shot down in that time frame. He got blown out of his airplane, parachuted down through the clouds, ended up in, the typical story, ended up in a courtyard, hung up in a tree, in his parachute, broken back, third-degree bones, burns. So anyways, he gets pulled out. They send him to Paris to rehab, gets out of rehab. They goes back to fly his brand new P-38 they had for him. Yeah. The medic looked at him and said, "You're not well," and they sent him back. He had a broken back that they didn't catch.
Oh, Jesus.
So after that, he was pretty much done. So they sent him back, stateside after that. Came back, flew a lot of the test flying of the new jets and all that stuff. It was just incredible stories. I mean, that lasts forever. Let's fast forward a bunch of years. My dad's here. They start developing airports. They built Washington Dulles, the air cargo facility in Dulles, Washington, D.C. Portland, Guam. They built a bunch of hangars at Van Nuys, Long Beach. They were all over the place building hangars. That was kind of their thing. They'd put these projects together, lease the hangars back, and wait for the next project. So in '78, they moved here, San Ynez, and they kept running their projects, but they were kind of downsizing and kind of figuring out what they want to do is in the next generation of aviation. And it's just, just one aviation business to the next.
That's so. Did you fly much with your grandpa?
I've flown a little bit with him. When I was younger, we flew quite a bit, but I don't remember a lot of that, that early years of that. But
you ever take him up?
Yeah, we've done some. Usually, we'll try and get up like on the anniversary of D-Day and do like a story in the cockpit or something like that, and we'll go. He's under one now. He loved flying so much. He would never talk bad about any air. I'm talking about this in past tense. He's still with us, so he will never talk bad about any airplane. If he's flying, that's what he likes to do. That's really cool. And but that takes me to the other point is he's 101 and he can't really fly aircraft anymore. So he's doesn't really want to just hang out and fly in the back seat, right? Yeah, he wants to be in control. So there's just that part of it. But
well, like beyond Jim the grandfather, you have Jim the dad. Yep. Who I knew, and unfortunately he passed away pretty recently. We lost him, and we happen to be sitting. We're at San Ynez Airport right now. Yep. And this is now Kunkle Field. Yeah. And that's just. How did that feel when they named the airport after your family?
It was really cool. my dad put in 18 years of his kind of his life when he moved here in 78. It was a few years after that because he was pretty young, but he became the president of the airport board. It's ran by a nonprofit organization, and he took over that, and he ran this airport, because he was, running all these other projects where he could stay home. So he was running this airport basically as an airport manager, taking absolutely no money for it.
Yeah.
And he turned this airport into a very viable business. I mean, up until, today, it's still making a lot of money and it's doing well and it's surviving really nice. It's a very popular airport. And so as a kind of a tribute, we really wanted to make it clear that it was not a memorial by any means. This was a tribute to kind of what he did and what my grandpa have done, in a big scale of, in the world with grandpa, and then kind of a local scale as far as what my dad's done for this area. Yeah. And so they named the airport after him, Kunkle Field. So it was, I can never live up to it, so I'm just kind of living. I'm living the coattails. I get
you're young. You got a lot of.
Yeah. So I do have plans to, when I kind of settle that, be able to negotiate my time to have some free time to give back to the community. I want to get on the board and start doing some more stuff to change this airport for the better, or help the current board, because I have ideas. I'm younger. My ideas are a little bit different than the board members that have been there for a long time or whatever. So, I think I can help with that. But,
for sure.
But it's, there's really no words that can describe how grateful I am what they did for my father and my grandpa. So.
Yeah. And your dad, losing your dad is always tough. I lost my dad 12 years ago now. I know you and your dad were really close. Yeah. And how is that? How are you coping with that these days?
Good. It's, it was extremely hard. I spent 24 hours a day, whether it was on the phone or driving to work or at work or whatever, at the Jet Center or here or whatever. My whole life has been with him. But, the good thing is, I think that's what's helped me really grieve it well is, I live his legacy every day. I go to work and how I can, move that to the next step. Yeah, this is becoming my legacy now, which is awesome, which I'm really proud of. But it's still all derived on what he started and what he was able to leave us, as a family. And so, down to the Super Cub. We were talking about it as like he bought that new, like I'm still flying it today. We rebuilt it and I'm flying the backcountry, in an airplane that he bought when he was 21 years old, it's, to me, that's insane.
That's crazy.
And then we have the 185 as well. That's back at the hangar. And he bought that with 300 hours on an 86 when I was born, like within a month of when I was born, because he needed a wagon.
You need a bigger plane.
And I'm flying that still too as well. And we're preserving those I want to call them heirlooms at this point, because there's no value to those airplanes that ever could replace them. You got to keep
I'll
go
for sure,
completely broke before I sell any of that stuff. You know? Because it just doesn't. There's no replacement value for it, and that goes with the Jet Center as well. He started that 20 years ago, and we keep building it, and it's just becoming a really awesome business. And I can't imagine doing anything else.
Yeah, tell me, what was the transition like? After your dad passed away, and then you really taking over the family business and becoming an aviation entrepreneur. You're running a business now, and it's tough.
Yeah, it's a lot different. Before, I always joke with my dad because, before I would just spend the money, right? I was just the operations manager and, just running around and we need this, we need that. I want to buy a new tug. I want to buy a new, jet truck or whatever. And he'd be like, well, how are you going to pay for it? Well, now it's like, I have to ask myself how I'm going to pay for it. So,
you got to pay for it.
Now I have to pay for it. And that's the scariest thing out of all this. And writing, checks for taxes and stuff that I never really had to do, it's like, and then also looking at liability, we're back to risk, right?
Sure.
It's always fun to show up at work and do whatever you want to do and all that stuff. But now you're looking at your employees. Yeah. Are they safe? Are they going to hurt anything? Are they going to cost you money by running an airplane into a hangar or all these things? Like, everybody thinks, oh, it's just fun. And they see my, they'll watch my Instagram and I'm just having fun, shooting pictures of F-35s and, F-5s and airplanes and flying the backcountry. But that's just a small little glimpse of my life,
That's what you want everyone to think.
Exactly.
I'm actually sitting here doing taxes.
Yeah, I'm writing $100,000 taxes and, and wondering how, making sure that you can afford to pay your guys every month and stuff, which is, I'm very lucky. We're very fortunate in having a great business. So the worry isn't necessarily if we can make it work. It's just, you have to understand that these are things that we have to think about, right? As far as a business owner.
Where do you want to go with the business? Do you have any directions? What have you done? What are you working on? We just
we just hired an architect. We're gonna we are gonna expand the Jet Center at Santa Maria.
Nice.
You know, it's fun, you know, in this community, you know, Bill Borgsmiller at San Luis Obispo. I mean, even you in Santa Barbara, watching this growth. I'm still young. I haven't been able to grow that yet because I'm only 2 years into kind of my own legacy of this business. But like, it's happening fast, and I'm really excited about it because, I mean, we've always known that the aviation business is moving up the coast, right? It's, you know, Van Nuys is full and Camarillo's, you know, almost full again, you know? And so it's working this way. So I'm positioning myself that I'm ready for this expansion, right? And so that's it. And then, you know, my ultimate goal is to, you know, we have a lake house somewhere in the Pacific Northwest with a small little, you know, self-serve on an airport that just makes enough money to pay for the fuel for my beaver on floats. And, you know, I mean, that's if I was going to say my ultimate goal, that's it. So.
Well, it's like places like this, right? Where we're living here in San Ynez. It is a magical place. And I think communities like this are going to expand. And aviation is such a great connection between here and, you know, we have, you know, big, huge city, LA.
Yep.
You know, it's a 2.5 hour, 3 hour drive to LA, right? Or it's a 45-minute flight in a small airplane. And I think there's more and more people coming in here. I mean, just since we've been at this airport, we've had 2 PC-12s land and a CJ take off. So there's obviously aviation. I kind of started my aviation entrepreneurial journey here in this area and flying CJs and PC-12s. And there is I think the market and the aviation community and the need is just going to continue to grow over here. I think you're positioned really well.
There's a lot of people from Texas that move out here just because of the VIS stories, and they meet different businesses and stuff. So like our business is growing. I mean, we used to have, you know, 1 NetJet flight, you know, a month, you know, compared to Santa Barbara where they're like 15 daily, you know, but now we're getting like 2 a day. Yeah, you know, and those people are coming here. They're not necessarily going to Santa Maria because Santa Maria is still not really a destination. Sure, but they're coming to the Valley, maybe even going to Santa Barbara just because they like the drive better or whatever. You know, it's just a matter of time, man. It's I'm really excited about it. We're positioned very well at the Jet Center. You know, we've done well and, you know, kept our debts down. So
and then you have some young kids, or
we just had a little girl, Piper. I don't know why nobody could figure that one out, right? But my wife was extremely cool.
The little bird, the little bird,
the bird,
on the beach,
right? Piper's super cub. Well, we're about to probably have a dog that's going to be named Cub. So we'll have Piper and Cub. But it's extremely fun. The sad part is that, you know, I had to tell my dad that we were having a kid, you know, basically on his deathbed, in which, you know, that was a tough one, but, you know, it lives on, right? The legacy lives on, and here we are, and hopefully I can do, you know, a third of what he did with me, you know? And I think we can. We're positioned pretty well to do that, and I hope to be able to take Piper to Idaho and camp and do all the things that I was doing with my father and bring her into the business and all that stuff. She's only 21 months, so I have a little while to wait.
No, get her in.
Yeah, you got to keep her going now. Get her going now. So there's no option. It is aviation. She's 4th generation, and the first, probably going to be the first female pilot in the Kunkle family, you know. So like, cool. That's really exciting to me, you know. So.
Maybe none of my kids like to fly. It's like, I don't understand.
We'll see. I'll force her.
Well, it's like growing up in an aviation family. My kids have all of their first flights have been with me as a pilot on the airplane. We're flying around, right? And they're like, it's almost like they become desensitized to it. So I don't know.
Well, it was the same thing. It took me till I was 23 to get my license because it was just I could solo, right? I mean, I could fly. We did it a lot. I was playing baseball. I was chasing girls, you know, all these different things that I was doing, that in aviation was just kind of easy, right? It was just a normal thing. And that maybe, so they might turn around.
Okay. That gives me hope. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. You had some cool, you have some projects going on with filming. I wanted to just kind of circle back on that so the audience can look for that.
Yeah. I think, hopefully Santa Barbara Film Festival, you know, next year we'll have some aviation in it. You know, we're really excited. We've been filming this piece for a while. It's going to be a short film, but there was a really kind of monumental event that happened. Obviously, everybody was familiar with the floods happened 2 years ago in January. Yeah, the same property that Cub Doug that flew into, that little Manzana ranch, Davis Ranch, about 3 months after he landed there and kind of made friends with Deb and Brian Davis, they flooded out. They couldn't get out. There was you couldn't take a dozer. The Cody Ranch is back there as well, the Cody's, and they were all stuck.
Yeah.
And it's like, you don't understand this. It's like 11 miles north of San Ynez, San Ynez Airport. So 22, 23 miles north of Santa Barbara, which is very, urban.
Close,
that there's somebody stuck in the wilderness that doesn't have food, that can't feed their pets, that can't do all this stuff. So anyways, the story went, they called up Cub Doug and said, hey, we're stuck in here. What's the chances that you guys start bringing us some stuff? We need some diesel for their tractor so we can go start working on these roads.
Yeah.
Our animals are running out of feed, and they're like, we'd love some water, just things that, that can,
some water,
some stuff. They were really worried about their pets and everything, because that's just who they are, right?
Yeah.
So Cub Doug just rallied the troops. I didn't have my Cub yet. It was just getting it back, so I was more involved back at San Ynez Airport side of it, just kind of just overwatching the whole thing. But do you know Seth Hammond?
Yes, I do.
So Neil and Cub Doug for 4 months ran supplies out there every Saturday morning, or every Sunday morning, whenever they needed it. It was the most amazing thing. You'd come to the airport on Saturday, and San Ynez feed would drop off all the feed for their pets at Cub Doug's hangar. They had wood, they had water. I mean, there was so much stuff that it was almost becoming like a job, right?
Wow.
But it was like
That's
the
so
support
cool.
was so cool.
Yeah.
But like, it was crazy. The wildest thing is that these people did not look for any fame. They didn't look for any thank yous. They just did it. These are business owners. I mean, Neil Cushman has a huge construction company in Santa Barbara. Doesn't need to be doing this.
Yeah.
Cub Doug has a tree cutting. Seth Hammond.
Yeah.
He doesn't need to do it.
Yeah.
But they all rallied. It was always, it'd be foggy. They'd take off. They would go out into, you wouldn't even know where they went. They wouldn't even tell you. And they were helping somebody,
so
basically survive in the backcountry out here. And that's what's so crazy, is that aviation is, even in California, is still supporting these small little communities and people.
Yeah. I love that story. And, I don't think people really understand the Central Coast of California, how remote it is.
Yeah.
I mean, my family and I used to go to Zaca Lake every summer for just a few days and it's remote.
Yeah.
I mean, if that road closes, you're done, like you're hiking out.
Yeah.
I mean, it's amazing. And the Los Padres National Forest here is one of the remote places.
Yeah, 1 million acres.
Yeah. And it's just, there's no roads, there's no access. And if something happens out there, you're on your own for a long time. So.
Yeah, no, it's cool. And so we were able to, we brought some filming back and we recreated some stuff, but also just got a lot of the, the firsthand experiences. And we're really excited. We're just starting to get back some cuts and some video from our friends that are Ethan and Christian. And I'm so freaking excited.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing it. Well, I mean, people love aviation and they want to see stuff like this. And it's going to be, I guarantee that's going to be a huge success. I mean, look at 16 Right.
Yeah.
They filmed that, 20 years ago? And it's just such an iconic aviation film and done by a kid.
Yeah, and Grandpa was in that.
Yeah,
he was in it.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, it's so cool.
Yeah.
That's right. I remember that.
They sat on the lawn out here and filmed him because he grew up there. So, but yeah, it's aviation, storytelling, and all that together. I mean, people are very interested in that stuff, and just honestly, just a really good story. I mean, it's natural. Like, we didn't have to make anything up, and that's what I was talking to my guys about. Like, when we were first pitching the story, is like, we don't have to make any emotions up. We don't have to make any of the story up. It all happened.
Yeah.
They're flying out low in the fog. They're trying to support these guys. They're flying heavy into this 250-foot strip. There's all kinds of things that were going on. It's going to be called Sky Angels, and Deb is the one that came up with that name, because that's what she called these guys, because they'd drop in over Figueroa Mountain Road, and they would hear them. They hear that Super Cub, and like, they just knew that they were good,
Oh, that's so cool.
It's cool.
Nice. Yeah. So Sky Angels, will be looking for that.
Yeah.
Well, Chris, hey man, I want to thank you so much for coming on Flight Club Podcast and sharing your stories. And I've known you for a long time, and you're such a great guy, aviator, business guy, family guy. I just really admire what you're doing, and seeing you jumping in, being the, stepping up, and it's really cool, man. So congrats on all the success. And
I really appreciate being here. I mean, this is fun. I mean, always talking about, the different stuff and elements, and, and like I said, I respect what you've done with your businesses. And
I
I
appreciate
mean, it's
it.
just a amazing what, like I said, we've known each other since we were both just kind of not doing much,
Yeah,
and so like, it's fun. It's really cool to be a part of and watch that as far as the local community. So
so we'll keep tabs on each other, and it's good to have you as a friend. And where can our aviators find information on you and the Jet Center, your Instagram? Where can we find you?
Yeah, so my Instagram is Chris_Kunk. I try and be very active on it. I try to keep the Jet Center stuff kind of channeling through there because I have such a huge following. I call myself huge following, my micro influencer now. But I just we try and keep stuff going daily on that. The Jet Center also has its own Instagram, Central Coast Jet Center. But most importantly, just fly to Santa Maria and come say hi. I mean, we love having friends. We welcome small airplanes. We there's probably once or twice a week somebody will just come in and just hang out, in the lobby and chill, or photographers, that know me, that are kind of plane spotters or whatever. They'll hit me up when there's something cool happening. And like, I love being able to share that experience because it's a normal day job for me, right? Yeah. It's kind of desensitized, like we were talking about with other stuff. So like, it's fun to be able to share that with other people that just are like blown away with what we get to do on a daily basis.
Awesome.
So, yeah.
Okay. Well, aviators, thanks for joining.
All right.
Thanks for watching this episode of the Flight Club podcast. Please subscribe to the show, leave a comment below, and follow us on Instagram at Flight Club Pod. We'll see you next time.